It started with a whisper in the marble halls of Washington. Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, hadn't been on the national radar in months, by design. She'd kept a low profile, working quietly with a coalition of constitutional attorneys and whistleblowers deep in the Capitol's underbelly. But when her encrypted phone buzzed at 2:13 a.m. with the subject line, "Boasberg, they found it," she knew the time for silence had ended. The message was short and explosive: "We've got the sealed transcripts. Boasberg's communications with party operatives predate rulings. Leverage ready. Move now." Judge James Boasberg, Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, had long been a controversial figure, respected by some, reviled by others. His rulings on surveillance, election disputes, and classified material had drawn scrutiny, but no one had managed to crack his judicial armor. Until now. Pam pulled on a dark blazer, slid a USB into her inside pocket, and walked out into the night air. She didn't flinch when a black SUV pulled up to the curb without headlights. She knew who sent it. Inside the vehicle, her contact, an ex-NSA analyst turned whistleblower known only as Kite, handed her a laptop and said one word: "Watch." On the screen, a grainy video played. It showed Boasberg at a private dinner in Georgetown. Seated with him were two known operatives from a prominent political committee. Over wine and laughter, Boasberg could be heard referencing pending court decisions he hadn't made yet. Pam sat back, stunned but composed. She took a breath. "This goes to the House Oversight Committee," she said. "Tomorrow morning." "But that's not all," Kite said. "There's a money trail. Cayman Islands. Unreported assets. This is bigger than we thought." Pam nodded, already dialing a secure line. "Get the Department of Justice," she said. "It's time to shut him down." By 8:07 a.m., the Oversight Committee's private chamber was locked down. Pam Bondi stood at the head of the oak-paneled room with a manila folder in one hand and a flash drive in the other. Across the table sat 6 lawmakers, each hand-picked for their discretion and grit. No aides. No reporters. No leaks. She started without preamble. "We have evidence Judge Boasberg violated federal ethics statutes and may have engaged in criminal conduct while presiding over politically sensitive cases." A low murmur rippled across the room. Pam clicked a button. A monitor lit up behind her. Financial ledgers filled the screen, all stamped with offshore banking codes. Then, a series of emails, decrypted, time-stamped, appeared. One showed Boasberg forwarding a confidential draft opinion to a political consultant. Another showed a reply: "Perfect timing, Judge. We'll have the media ready to spin it on Thursday." One of the lawmakers, Representative Darrell Crane from Texas, leaned forward, stunned. "You're saying the chief judge of the D.C. District Court was coordinating his rulings with political operatives and laundering payments through shell accounts?" Pam didn't blink. "That's exactly what I'm saying. And we've got the receipts." At that moment, a Capitol police officer slipped into the room and handed Pam a sealed document. She opened it, scanned the contents, and then smiled grimly. "The DOJ just greenlit a formal criminal inquiry. Effective immediately, Boasberg is under federal investigation." Silence. "And then, what do you need from us?" asked Representative Crane. Pam closed the folder and slid it across the table. "Everything. Subpoena power. Witness protection. And I want a special counsel. If Boasberg's compromised, there's no telling how deep this goes. This could taint a decade of federal rulings." Across town, in the E. Barrett Prettyman Courthouse, Judge Boasberg sat behind his bench, unaware that his reign was crumbling hour by hour. But that would soon change. At precisely 10:14 a.m., Judge James Boasberg's clerk walked briskly into his chambers, his face pale. "Sir, you're going to want to see this." Boasberg took the printed memo and scanned it. His eyes locked on the headline: "DOJ launches criminal investigation into Chief Judge Boasberg, allegations of political collusion surface. His hand trembled slightly, but he set the paper down with mechanical calm. "This is nonsense," he said, forcing a smirk. "Someone's trying to score points." But the knock at the door wasn't political theater, it was real. Two plainclothes DOJ investigators stepped inside. "We're here on official orders," one said, holding up credentials. "We'll need access to your communications devices, and we're issuing an immediate preservation order for all court records under your purview." Boasberg stood up slowly. "You think you can just walk in here?" The lead agent cut him off. "This is no longer your courtroom, Judge. Effective immediately, Chief Judge responsibilities are being transferred under emergency jurisdiction. You've been compromised." For the first time in decades, Boasberg had no words. Meanwhile, back at the DOJ headquarters, Pam Bondi sat in a secure briefing with a team of federal prosecutors, forensic accountants, and cyber analysts. One of them, a quiet, gray-haired woman from Treasury, spoke up. "We traced 2 PACs that funneled dark money into the same offshore account tied to Boasberg's trust. The signature authorization. It's his. Verified by biometric metadata." Pam didn't flinch. "Then we've got him." The room was tense. This wasn't just about one judge anymore. The patterns emerging showed links to multiple rulings, on redistricting, surveillance laws, election security. If Boasberg's bench had been compromised, the legal implications would be seismic. "If this goes to trial," a prosecutor muttered, "the fallout could make Watergate look like a parking ticket." Pam leaned forward, voice calm, resolute, "Then we bring it all down. Every corrupted ruling. Every backroom deal. We're not just investigating a judge, we're investigating the erosion of justice itself." By dusk, Washington was in full meltdown mode. News helicopters hovered over the courthouse like vultures. Cable outlets cut into their regular programming with the breaking cheerin', "Federal judge under investigation, collusion with political operatives alleged." Pam Bondi, back at her secure location, was reviewing the latest forensic data. Kite, the ex-NSA analyst, was seated across from her, his fingers flying across a keyboard as lines of encrypted chat logs unfurled across 3 monitors. "It wasn't just Boasberg," he said without looking up. "Look here." Pam leaned in. The screen showed a private message thread between Boasberg and 3 other usernames, one of them tied to a known D.C. lobbyist, another traced to a sitting appellate judge in the Ninth Circuit. He was coordinating rulings, across jurisdictions. Pam asked, stunned. "Looks like it," Kite said grimly. "They even had a nickname for it, the Black Robe Syndicate." Pam sat back, a chill settling into her bones. She wasn't dealing with one rogue judge anymore. She was staring down a shadow cabal that had potentially altered the legal landscape of America behind closed doors. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a direct line from the Attorney General's office. "Pam," said the voice on the line. "We've got authorization. A federal grand jury has been convened. You're leading it." Her eyes widened. "You're putting me in charge of the grand jury? You exposed this. The president's backing the move. We want a clean sweep. You get the indictments, we'll deliver the arrests." She hung up, barely breathing. Everything was accelerating. She turned to Kite. "Send subpoenas to the Judiciary Oversight Committee, and flag the other judges involved. I want full background checks, financial records, and communication logs from the last 5 years. If we're going to dismantle this network, we need to be fast. Surgical." Kite nodded. "And Boasberg?" Pam didn't hesitate. "He testifies. In public. Under oath. I want the entire country to see what he was doing in that robe." Outside, as the Capitol dome glowed against the twilight sky, D.C. insiders were already scrambling, phones buzzing, lawyers lawyering. But it was too late. The storm had already broken. The hearing room was standing room only. Reporters were shoulder to shoulder, cameras trained on the witness chair like a sniper's scope. Security was doubled. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. No one had ever seen a sitting chief judge brought in like this. Pam Bondi stood tall at the front of the room, flanked by 2 federal marshals and a row of binders that looked more like they belonged in Langley than in a courtroom. She waited, arms crossed, as the door opened and Judge James Boasberg was led in, unrobed, unsmiling, and under federal subpoena. He looked older now. Pale. Shrinking in a suit that didn't fit right. "Raise your right hand," the clerk said. "Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Boasberg hesitated. Then nodded. "I do." The room was silent except for the faint buzz of a live feed broadcasting coast to coast. Pam began. "Judge Boasberg, on the night of March 3rd, were you present at a private dinner in Georgetown with political consultant Aaron Vexley and Super PAC coordinator Dana Merrill?" He stared at her. "I don't recall." Pam leaned forward and slid a printed photo across the desk, a still from surveillance footage. Boasberg, wine glass in hand, laughing with both individuals. Gasps from the press row. "Let me rephrase," Pam said, voice cold. "Were you accepting political briefings while presiding over cases directly tied to those individuals' agendas?" Silence. "I want to remind you, Judge, that perjury before this committee carries criminal penalties. And obstruction will be considered evidence of guilt in the ongoing investigation." Boasberg blinked. His voice cracked. "I was approached. I didn't initiate the contact. They came to me." Pam stepped in, cutting off murmurs. "But you responded. You acted. You passed along confidential drafts. You coordinated with PACs. You buried motions from opposition parties. And you got paid." She opened one of the binders, revealing wire transfer records from a shell company in Cyprus, timestamped just days after key rulings in Boasberg's court. "We have the trail. All of it. So I'll ask you one last time, who else was involved?" Boasberg's hands trembled. Sweat glistened on his forehead. He looked around the room, as if realizing just now that his fortress of immunity had turned to dust. He swallowed. "It wasn't just me," he whispered. "There were others. Higher than you think." Pam nodded slowly, already knowing. "Give us names. Or burn alone." Boasberg exhaled like a man releasing decades of poison. "There's a judge on the Ninth Circuit, Meredith Halston. She handled immigration stays. She coordinated with Vexley every quarter." Pam jotted the name. "Keep going." "Judge Brenner, Southern District of New York, he ruled on multiple election integrity suits. He was promised a federal appellate seat if he suppressed evidence of ballot inconsistencies." Gasps echoed across the room. The camera feeds cut to anchors struggling to keep pace. Twitter feeds exploded. Hashtag Judicial Syndicate began trending globally. Pam kept pressing. "Were any executive branch officials involved?" Boasberg hesitated, lips trembling. "There were liaisons. White House adjacent. They wanted plausible deniability, but, yes. They gave instructions. Discreetly. Through intermediaries. Names. A legal advisor known only as Archer, always masked behind encrypted networks. I never met him in person. But the wire transfers came days after I followed his suggestions." Pam stood in silence for a moment, staring at Boasberg like a scientist who just found a live virus strain. Then she turned to the committee chair. "We need warrants for Halston, Brenner, and any financial entities tied to Archer. Freeze their assets. I want them on record within 72 hours. The chair nodded. Across D.C., the ripple became a tsunami. Inside federal agencies, panicked staffers scrubbed files and deleted messages. Law firms cut ties with their political clients. 3 federal judges requested emergency leaves of absence by sundown. One was caught boarding a private jet at Dulles, but it never left the tarmac. At the DOJ, a war room had formed. Red string maps. Highlighter trails across banking records. One intern whispered, "This feels like a coup," in reverse. Pam, back in her temporary HQ, looked out at the night sky. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number, you're in danger. They won't let this go public. Watch your 6." She stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed, "Let them come." And hit send. At 2:03 a.m., the power cut out. Pam Bondi was reviewing deposition summaries when the lights in the building flickered, died, then came back dim, emergency backup only. Kite, working 2 desks away, froze. "That wasn't a glitch," he said, already tapping into a secondary power readout. "They just pinged the transformer. Someone's testing our vulnerability." Pam didn't speak. She reached under the desk and removed a black lockbox. Inside, a compact SIG Sauer, standard issue from her time in state office, with a fresh magazine. "They're getting nervous," she said quietly. "Which means we're getting close." Outside, the street that had been quiet all night suddenly echoed with the low hum of an SUV engine circling twice. Kite pulled the blinds back just enough to glimpse a silhouette in the passenger seat, headset, dark suit, no badge. Not press. Not cops. Pam tapped her phone and called Marshal Services. "This is Bondi. Level 3 lockdown. Confirm evac route Bravo 1. Send transport in 5 minutes, no sirens." Meanwhile, at a secure DOJ data vault, a young tech named Olivia Krantz was watching a data package download onto an encrypted drive. It was everything: the chat logs, the wire transfers, Boasberg's testimony, even names from the sealed portion of the grand jury's early findings. Suddenly, her terminal blinked, remote access detected. Location, foreign IP. Transfer breach in progress. Olivia's fingers flew across the keys, sealing the drive and initiating a self-wipe protocol on the mainframe. She ripped the drive free and shouted to the agent nearby, "They're trying to delete the files remotely. We've been compromised." Within seconds, the lights inside the vault went red. Back at Pam's safe house, the SUV outside drove off, but a small black drone now hovered across the street. Kite squinted at its blinking light. "That's a seeker drone. Civilian tech, modified. It's recording." Pam stepped into the hallway, gun tucked behind her blazer, calm as ever. "Let it record," she said. "They can film me walking out. They'll be filming the last person to expose them before this all comes crashing down." Just then, her burner phone buzzed again. This time, a video. She tapped play. It was live footage, grainy but unmistakable, of Judge Halston boarding a private Gulfstream in Nevada. With her was someone wearing a DOJ lapel pin. Someone who shouldn't have been there. Kite's face went white. "That's Deputy AG Lucien Fry." Pam's voice was like ice. "He's the leak." Deputy Attorney General Lucien Fry had always been 2 things, charismatic and slippery. The kind of man who could smile through a lie and shake your hand while stabbing you with the other. But now, there was no more hiding. Pam Bondi stared at the still frame of Fry loading cargo into the Gulfstream with Judge Halston. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a location ping. Kite looked over her shoulder. "That's an NSA substation. Off books. Only a handful of people even know it exists." "Which means," Pam muttered, "he's running to hide something. Not just himself." She dialed DOJ Internal Affairs. "This is Bondi. I want Lucien Fry detained. Probable cause includes obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and aiding a judicial crime syndicate. Issue the warrant, now." The voice on the other end hesitated. Pam. Phrase already requested executive immunity. Someone upstairs just approved it. Pam's breath caught. Someone upstairs. White House counsel's office. Fast-tracked it less than 10 minutes ago. She hung up. Her blood was boiling. Meanwhile, in a rain-slick alley just outside the NSA's hidden substation, Fry moved quickly. He held a sealed satchel, contents unknown, and handed it to a courier dressed as a food delivery biker. The man nodded once, then sped off into the night. Fry stepped back into the darkness, already texting, dead drop successful. Contents en route. Initiate media failsafe. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the biker wasn't one of his men. He was one of Pam's. Kite had intercepted the data stream the moment the drone first hovered outside Pam's window. From then on, they had eyes on everything, including Frey's attempt at a clean exit. In a secured facility across the river, Pam and Kite opened the courier's satchel under full chain of custody protocol. Inside, 3 flash drives, a burner phone, and a leather-bound notebook. On the cover, one word was burned in gold: Archer. Kite's eyes widened. Wait. Archer wasn't a person. Pam flipped open the first page. Lines of judicial code. Coordinated ruling schedules. A list of encrypted usernames, most of which matched current federal judges. Archer wasn't a person. It was a system. A code name for the judicial arm of the syndicate. A covert network used to swing decisions, suppress hearings, and funnel foreign donations through domestic proxies. This is it, Kite whispered. This blows it wide open. Pam stood up, face hard as steel. I want a federal broadcast. Prime time. I want every American to hear this from me, not from a spin room. The stage was set. The final move was coming. But somewhere, in the West Wing of the White House, someone was making a phone call. To make sure Pam Bondi didn't live long enough to make that broadcast. The White House was quiet, too quiet. Inside a private soundproof room off the West Wing, the President's Special Security Liaison, Victor Ames, was on a secure call routed through 5 international relays. No record. No trace. She has the Archer files, he said flatly. It's over if she speaks. The voice on the other end responded without emotion. Then she doesn't speak. Ames hung up and slid a manila envelope across the table to a silent man in tactical clothing. No insignia. No name tag. Just a nod. Back at the secure DOJ facility, Pam Bondi stood before a dozen agents and 2 trusted federal prosecutors, rehearsing the statement she'd deliver to the nation in under 12 hours. The plan was simple: expose the network. Name names. Show the Archer documents. And force the Department of Justice to act in front of 330 million people. But nothing ever stayed simple for long. Kite entered the room, pale. We have chatter, he said. Intercepted on a non-government channel. Someone's greenlit a neutralization op. Not surveillance, extermination. Pam blinked slowly. On me? On you, your driver, and 2 of the tech agents. I already pulled them off rotation. But if we stay here, we're fish in a barrel. Pam stared at the binder on the table. Archer. She had enough to burn down half of D.C. The courts. The PACs. Even the puppet masters in high office. And that's why they were coming. At 2:11 a.m., a black SUV parked outside the DOJ's side entrance. No lights. No plates. Inside, the strike team checked their loadout. Suppressed weapons. Gas grenades. One of them opened a case labeled, Event Containment, Final. But when the team breached the corridor, the building was empty. Just flickering lights and white noise. A laptop sat on the central conference table, camera light blinking. Then it played. Pam's voice came through: to those watching this feed, if you're seeing it, I'm already gone. Not dead. Just, out of reach. The camera panned to Kite beside her, holding up the Archer binder. We've transmitted the entire data set to 5 international newsrooms, 2 independent judicial watch organizations, and the House Judiciary Chair's private line. Pam leaned in. You can kill me. You can burn the building. But you'll never bury the truth again. 5 minutes later, the binder's contents appeared on every major outlet across the globe. Names. Transactions. Leaked footage. Foreign connections. Judicial manipulation. The syndicate wasn't just exposed. It was incinerated. And Pam? Gone. No trace. No confirmed sightings. Only a voice, playing on repeat across news networks. This was never about politics. This was about power. And those who abuse it behind robes and red ties. Now they answer to the people. In the 72 hours following the broadcast, the United States entered a legal firestorm unlike anything in its history. 37 federal judges placed under emergency review. 5 resigned before sunrise. 2 attempted to flee the country, both stopped mid-flight. 1, Judge Halston, tried to fake her death in Baja, but Interpol found her within the week. Cable news became a revolving door of panic and confessions. Whistleblowers, once silenced, came forward en masse. Pam Bondi's name was being chanted in protests from Boston to Boise. The Archer system had been real, and it was deep. And at the heart of it all, one name kept surfacing on every flowchart, every testimony, every bank record trace: Lucien Fry. The deputy AG who claimed innocence, then tried to claim executive privilege, was now cornered. His immunity evaporated under pressure from the House Oversight Committee. When they subpoenaed him to testify, he showed up sweating, stammering, and surrounded by 4 lawyers. He tried to plead the Fifth. But the committee had the Archer binder. Mr. Fry, one congresswoman said, you will answer this committee's questions, or we will hold you in contempt of Congress and refer you for criminal prosecution. He cracked. It was never supposed to go this far, he blurted. They promised no one would get hurt. It was supposed to be subtle. Controlled. Define they, the congresswoman asked. He swallowed hard. High-ranking officials. Both parties. Donors. Lobbyists. Some of them weren't even American. The room went still. As the investigation widened into a global judicial influence scandal, Interpol, MI6, and the Canadian Intelligence Service began sharing intel. It turned out Archer was part of a broader, multinational scheme to manipulate not just American law, but the courts of multiple democracies. And through it all, the one person who had cracked the dam wide open, was gone. Pam Bondi became a ghost. No flights. No bank activity. No phone pings. But then, 2 months later, in a small village on the coast of Sicily, a cafe owner reported a tall, blonde American woman who paid cash and tipped heavily. Said her name was Paula. She disappeared before anyone could confirm. But inside the empty coffee cup she left behind was a folded note. Written in sharp, deliberate pen, you can rebuild a broken nation. Just don't let them wear the robes again. P.B. 6 months had passed. Congress was still holding hearings. New reforms were in the pipeline. Archer had become a household word, a synonym for corruption in robes. The justice system, bruised and battered, was clawing back its legitimacy. But behind the scenes, something else was brewing. In a classified bunker beneath Langley, CIA cyber analysts were reviewing intercepted chatter from an encrypted satellite relay off the coast of Tunisia. What they found sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. It wasn't over. A new digital file was circulating in darknets around the world. Codename, Gavel 9. Signature, encrypted by Archer OS 2.0. Someone had rebuilt it. Meanwhile, in a remote vineyard in southern Italy, a woman in a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses sat beneath a cypress tree. She was reading a newspaper, the Washington Sentinel, with a headline that read, "New Shadow Network Discovered, Possible Archer Revival." She smiled faintly, took a sip of wine, and dialed a secure sat phone. "Kite," she said. "It's starting again. You want to stop it?" "No," Pam replied. "This time. I want to hunt every last one of them." She hung up, stood, and walked down the dusty path, the sunset stretching long shadows behind her. From the ashes of Archer, a new fight was beginning. Not for politics. Not for power. But for justice, the kind that doesn't wear a black robe or hide behind immunity. Pam Bondi was back. And this time, she wasn't coming to testify. She was coming to end the entire machine. Berlin. Midnight. Kite moved like a ghost through the silent corridors of the abandoned East German intelligence archive. Behind a sealed iron door in Vault 3C was what they had come for, the Gavel Codex, a hard-coded backup system that once powered Archer's predictive algorithm. Until now, nobody even knew it existed. Except for Pam. Thousands of miles away, in a private surveillance room beneath an Italian vineyard, Pam watched the live drone feed flickering on a handheld tablet. Her eyes didn't blink. Her voice was calm over the encrypted line. "Get it. Extract the core. And if it's been activated, torch the rest." Kite opened the vault. There it was. Not a server. Not a drive. A briefcase-sized machine from the Cold War era. Analog switches. Tungsten casing. No remote access. This was the kind of tech that never went offline because it was never online to begin with. "It's real," Kite said. "And it's warm. Someone powered it up in the last week." Pam's voice sharpened. "Then we're not just chasing ghosts anymore." At that exact moment, back in D.C., Acting Chief Judge Delaney Reeves received a package at her personal residence. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper: "Replace Archer, or become Archer." G9 the postmark. Berlin. Pam knew what it meant. Gavel 9 wasn't a reboot. It was a mutation. Instead of controlling judges, it would replace them with AI-aided shadow rulings, verdicts decided before the trial even began, uploaded and distributed through compromised government systems. Quiet. Efficient. Invisible. And someone had already begun Phase 1. Back in Berlin, Kite secured the codex and uploaded a fragment of the operating logs to Pam's system. As she decrypted the first line, she froze. Because right there, plain as day, was a name in the access log: user, Fry. 2 Lucien Fry was supposed to be locked up. "That's impossible," Kite said. "He's in a federal holding facility in Maryland." Pam didn't look up. "No, he's not," she muttered. "He escaped. Or they let him out. And he's trying to finish what Archer started." She stood slowly and holstered her sidearm. "It's time to go back to D.C. Washington, D.C. 2 days later. The sky hung low over the Capitol, gray, bruised, silent. Inside a classified conference room beneath the DOJ, Pam Bondi stood before a wall of screens. Each one displayed a face: judges, tech moguls, PAC leaders, foreign agents, all tied to Gavel 9. All still free. And one in the middle, Lucien Fry. Kite patched in the last piece of intel: a hidden server farm in an underground chamber beneath the Library of Congress. Leftover Cold War architecture, forgotten, off-grid. That's where Gavel 9 was writing the next wave of judicial rulings before they ever reached court. Pam strapped on her vest. "We end this tonight. 10:41 p.m., entry point, maintenance hatch under Independence Avenue." The team moved fast: Pam, Kite, 2 trusted marshals, and a former NATO cyber warfare analyst who owed Pam a favor. They descended into darkness, then broke through a concrete wall, into the lair. Rows of humming servers. Cables snaking like veins. And in the center of it all, a podium. And Fry. Pam, he smiled. Still clinging to analog morality in a digital world? I'm clinging to something you gave up a long time ago, she said. The law. Fry chuckled. The law. I rewrote the law. Archer was just the first draft. Gavel 9 is pure, judges are inefficient. Emotion. Politics. Bias. Algorithms. They never recuse. Never sleep. Never, boom. A flashbang rocked the chamber. In one swift motion, the marshals tackled Fry. Kite moved to the terminal. It's running live code, he said. They already uploaded 3 fake rulings into the national docket queue. If we don't kill this right now, Pam didn't wait. She pulled her pistol. Aimed at the server's central brain. Fired. The room went dark. The hum died. Screens blinked and vanished. Gavel 9 was dead. 1 week later. Congress held an emergency session. All rulings tainted by Gavel 9 were suspended. Lucien Fry was denied bail and transferred to a maximum security facility with 24-hour human surveillance, no tech allowed. The president, under pressure from both parties, signed the Judicial Integrity Act, banning all AI-generated legal decisions and imposing lifetime transparency audits on federal judges. And Pam? She declined all interviews. She returned to Florida quietly, back to the coast. She opened a small law clinic, pro bono. No headlines. No speeches. Until a reporter spotted her 6 months later and asked, Pam, after everything, would you do it again? She smiled faintly, turned to the ocean, and said, I never stopped.